Welcome to the Through It Podcast, conversations about surviving, healing, and growing. With your hosts, Holly Rogers and Paul Spurl. Anytime you have questions or comments about one of the episodes, email us anytime. Podcastthroughit@gmail.com. And now, Holly Rogers and Paul Spurl.
Hey guys, we are back for another episode with, is it a doctor? Is it doctor? It's not a doctor? Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let me try that again. That's all right. Hey everybody, we're back again for another marriage and divorce episode with twice master degreed Lindsay Keiser. Is that how you pronounce that? There you go. Beautiful. We're going to talk about the other side of divorce now. Like, what kind of stuff are we going to hit today?
We're going to talk about co-parenting. I've got a little list here. Grief.
Where'd she go? Oh, there she is.
Back. Grief, co-parenting, having a broken picker, dating, and trying to break the generational patterns.
We'll be back with Lindsay in just a minute. Don't go far. Hey guys, we're back with the Through It Podcast with Holly and Paul. I'm going to stay off camera on purpose because my head takes up a lot of the screen. So we're back with Lindsay Keiser. She is a marriage and family counselor. Many degrees in this subject. I feel very inadequate again. Thanks for making the trip back with us again.
Thanks for having me.
Come for another episode here. Just a quick recap for those who missed the last episode. First of all, where have you been? You need to download it quick. But you've been married. You've been divorced. And now you've been married again, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm guessing happy.
Yes.
That works out well. Dude does have some kids at the old ranch there. And you have not only learned about it, but you've lived it. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about that last episode, how I think that's a little more valuable sometimes. It's like you go to a certain church and a Catholic priest who's not married says, well, this is what you should do in your marriage. Well, how do you know? Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's to talk to someone who actually has been through it is pretty awesome. We talked about leading up to and deciding and what it takes to actually make that move to get divorced. Now, we talk about what happens afterwards.
Yes, and you and I chatted earlier in the week, mm-hmm. and you had a lot of good ideas. I was soaking all of the information out that I could, and as Paul mentioned, you've been through it, which mm-hmm. I just think lends to your credibility. You've been there, you've lived it, mm-hmm. and you've got some really, really good suggestions. And some of what we talked about was the grief that comes mm-hmm. When the decision is made that the marriage isn't working, it's time to move on. And then you've got, I think, the hardest part are like the first several months mm-hmm. where the dust has settled. Things are so different than what you had envisioned, what your life had been like for, however many years you had been married. You've got to figure out potentially how to co-parent mm-hmm. if you had children. Dating is daunting, especially if you've not done much of it, which has been my experience. And then because of upbringing and just life experience, you may have a broken picker, and which I've acknowledged. So we're going to talk about some of that today, and then breaking generational patterns. I think is mm-hmm. huge, because you often mimic what you've seen, and that's your comfort level, mm-hmm. and so you kind of bring that with you into your relationships. Mm-hmm. So we have mm-hmm. a lot to cover on this episode, right. But I'm really excited to get through it. So grief. Mm-hmm. You've decided to get divorced. You're out of the marriage. You're trying to settle into this new identity. Mm-hmm. How do you coach your patients mm-hmm. in moving through this phase?
I tell them to move through it slowly, which is counter to what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whenever we feel pain, we want to move faster.
Yeah.
We want to make it better. We want to fix it. We want it to go away. And the truth is, if we move too fast through this kind of pain, we end up skipping over the growth. and skipping over the pieces that we really need to learn in order to make the next chapter better.
Mm-hmm.
So going slow, really kind of like feeling the feelings. Allowing yourself to, we talked about this last time, like walk through the fire instead of around it. Lots of people want to walk around it because it's easier. But when we walk around it, a new fire pops up somewhere else, right? It just keeps popping up until we figure out how to walk through it and address some of the things that are really hard in our lives. It just keeps popping up. So I always encourage people to go slow, to get support, and to walk sort of slowly through that beginning grief period. It can be a lot of tears. It can be a lot of sadness. It can be a lot of shame. It can be really dark for people. Mm-hmm. It's hard. And so I really encourage people to have a support person. That's probably not your mom or your sister. Sometimes we love them, but they fuel us in directions that aren't necessarily going to help us grow. And so having a therapist, having, a member of your church, having someone that you can confide in and talk to be able to have that person that you can depend on to be able to work your way through it really, really helps.
Yeah, we had just talked about potentially reaching out to different counselors, or as you suggested, a church, to see maybe they have a group for newly divorced people that might be helpful. I know I was in a group for I think a couple of years, and it was really helpful for me, just hearing other people's stories and struggles and learning how they worked through it. It was fascinating to me that it helped me too, and also I gained a lot of friendships out of that as well. So my tribe, so to speak, like they truly understood me, and also gave me good advice to reflect on.
I think it helps normalize it too when you have a group of people who have gone through something, because when you're going through a divorce or you've just gone through a divorce, I think it almost feels like you're the only one.
Yeah.
And you're not. We all know the numbers, right? We know you're not, but you feel like you're the only one. You feel like you're wearing that t-shirt, I failed in life, and everyone sees it. And when you're in a group of people who have also, everybody's wearing the same t-shirts, right? Everybody feels the same way. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not just a me thing. There are other people who are also experiencing this similar grief, and you don't feel as alone.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. So here's a tricky question. What's the timeline for that period?
Of a group, or
just grief?
How long the grief should last?
Yeah.
I don't know that there is one. I think everybody is so different. Grief is so different. Like there are some people who move forward very quickly. They get everything all lined up. They feel like I'm good. And then they crash, right? There are people who immediately move on to a new relationship, and they get in and they start seeing the same stuff, and they realize, oh my gosh, like that just doesn't work. I went too fast.
Yeah.
So I think everybody is different in terms of their pacing with that. How long they've been married, how many kids they have, if they have kids, if they had to share pets. Yes. We didn't talk about that in the last episode, right?
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
Right, who gets the pets? That can be also really, really difficult for people.
Yeah.
And so I think that it just sort of depends. And I don't really like to put a timeline on it, because I think that sets up an expectation that you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And I just don't think there's very many things that are like that. People get to move through them at their own pace. And hopefully if they're seeing a counselor, they're able to be pushed in the right places so that they're moving forward and not standing still. Right?
Yeah. No, I think that's great advice. Everybody does grief differently. So many different things affect that for sure. I don't know if you have any other questions as it relates to grief that you can.
I do and sorry to be off camera, but we talked about why. There's many different things that are going to happen after you split. You're living by yourself. You and your kids are still in the house, but you're by yourself. You are moved back in with your parents. Whatever that might be, which all sounds completely healthy. But you're starting this new life, this new thing by yourself. And and you're just doubting everything, and you're pissed off, and you just, everything's why did this happen? What did I do wrong? There's so much stuff going on. It's hard to manage. What do you tell people to calm the mind down? How do you get through those first few months until it becomes the only word I have is normal, and I don't know if that's the word, but how do you get people through that?
So for me, I wrote a list of all of my truths that I knew about myself. That I was a good mother, that I was a kind person, that I was a good counselor. I wrote down all of these truths on a piece of paper, literally pen to paper. And I kept this piece of paper in my nightstand. And on those days, which there were many, that I doubted what my life would look like, how I would be able to move forward, I got that paper out and I read it over and over and over and over until I believed every single line.
You got to talk yourself into it then.
Yeah, I don't know if it's talk yourself into it so much as it is reminding yourself daily who you are.
Your daily affirmation.
Yeah, it's a daily affirmation about who you are. We lose who we are in divorce often. We lose ourselves. And finding our way involves finding ourselves again. And so for me, that technique has worked. I use that with my clients. A lot of them feel this shame and their confidence is knocked down, especially if they had a spouse who had an affair and has now asked for a divorce, right? Like there's a lot that goes into that in terms of their own self-worth. And so really working with people on finding, let's talk about who you are, like what's in there. And then giving them a way to remind themselves on a daily basis about those core values and who they are.
Okay, I'm an angry guy.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the next relationship, and it's not always the healthiest. I'm trying to fill that void every way I can. And usually it's not healthy because it has to do with alcohol and every woman I can find. I guess is if I'm gonna go out and try to hook up with everybody I can, because that's going to fill my void. Is that a way to process, or is that an unhealthy way? Is it one of those, hey, all right, get it out of your system, you're fine, or am I causing myself more damage?
I would say the answer to that is yes and yes. I've worked with a lot of people who potentially didn't date a whole lot before their first marriage, and then when they got divorced, the floodgate opened. It opened. And, something I use a lot in my practice is that things work until they don't. And it's never my job to judge or process, somebody else's game plan, right? I think people sometimes need to go through that to be able to find themselves. And it's sometimes an acting out process, sometimes it's a covering up process. But what we do is, like, when people are meeting with me, I talk with them. Is that working for you? Is that working for you? And I'm in the time of my life. Of course it's working for me. This is amazing, right? And I'll say, okay, that's good. Tell me about how, what's it doing for you? And then we meet in another week. And eventually we get to the point where they're like, this isn't working for me anymore. And they do it in their own time, and it's okay. It's okay. We obviously talk a lot about self-destructive behavior, and so that they see it when it happens, right? Yeah. So there's some psychoeducation that goes on there around self-destructive behavior for sure. But yeah, I think sometimes the path forward isn't straight.
Have you noticed the grieving process being different for men and women?
I think it's just plain different. I don't know that it's a man or a woman thing so much as it is all of the things. The background, the length of marriage, the stability the person feels like maybe in their career, or the security in the relationship with their kids or their own parents. It's sort of like circumstance, right? That I think matters more. Because I've seen both sides of it, and I think it really matters more like what people have been through than necessarily if they're men or women.
Okay, that's great feedback. That's good to know. Yeah, I found in the early phases of my divorce, weekends were difficult for me. The evenings were difficult. during the week it wasn't too bad because I was, there were always things to do, but when the quiet set in, that was challenging. And that took me some years to get used to. I now value my quiet,
Absolutely.
my quiet time. And I know my personality is to try to fill my empty space with things to do to help me get through rough patches. But I do know that took some time.
Were you going to change your mind?
No.
Okay. So it wasn't the quiet. It wasn't like, oh man, I made a mistake. Let's fix this.
I was sad. That because divorce isn't what I wanted, and I had chosen my partner because I thought that it was going to be a lifelong commitment. So I was sad that that wasn't the case, but I feel like I did everything I knew how to do. There are things that I could have improved upon, of course, in the marriage, but I did everything I knew how to do to try to make it work. And it just came to the point that it wasn't going to work, and we needed to call it quits and move on. And we did that, and I think pretty amicably for the most part, because it was really important for me to make it as easy on my kids as I possibly could.
Yeah.
That was what I was most worried about, and they adjusted well, thankfully. But yeah, it was a hard time. Those first few months, I just always, it makes me sad when I have friends and family that are going through it, and then those first 6 months are just hard because did I make a mistake? Should I go back? What did I do wrong? Anger, there's just, am I going to be able to financially survive? Do I have to move? I mean, there's just so many things that can go into a divorce. So it's a lot.
The silence is both hard and important. And I think we don't want too much of it. I can remember feeling like, if someone doesn't check on me, like I could die in my house watching Lifetime and no one would know. Like no one would know if anything happened to me. So I do know that there were periods of time where I felt like that. And I think when that went on for maybe too long, I had to start exploring, who am I? Like, and it's hard when you have little kids, right? Because you're a mom.
Yep.
You were a mom, you were a wife, you were whatever your career is, that's what you were. And now I had some time on my hands that I didn't have before. And it does become beautiful because as, young moms like to be able to have a period of time where you don't have something, you can do something for yourself.
You can shower.
It becomes beautiful, right?
You can eat.
You can.
You're a warm meal.
You can go to the bathroom by yourself.
Yes.
All alone. Yes. So like it does become a beautiful thing at some point, but in the beginning it's not. It's very painful. It's very painful. And so when I felt my own going too long, I started to think, what do I want to do? Do I want to take an art class? Do I want to learn how to make jewelry? Do I want to, well, what I decided was I wanted to run a marathon. And so I had decided that was something that was important to me to figure out how to do. I had asthma my entire life.
Same.
It was this challenge that I was like, I'm going to figure out how to do this, right? And it took a lot of training and a lot of time, but it was time that was well spent because it was solitude. I was mostly training by myself. And so there were small things along the way that I started to pick up as like a piece that was now being incorporated into the new version of myself. And that became really important to sort of get out of that like weekend, Lifetime movie binging time.
Yep. No, I love that. I know. I do think when I was installing that fan and I was on a very tall ladder, and I was like, if I bite it, nobody's coming for me. You do think about those things.
Well, I think I told you that story in my garage. I was up in this loft part of my garage, and they have plywood, right? And you don't step on that. You just step on the boards, right? And I still don't know if I accidentally stepped on it, if I thought I could step on it. I'm not really sure. But I fell through the ceiling of my garage. And I was dangling over top of my car.
Oh.
And no one was home. And it was a moment of, like, what happens next, right? It was a moment of meeting myself where I was at in a really hard space and having to decide, am I going to let go and just fall onto this car, or am I going to pull myself up? And so I'm hanging there thinking all of this, and I eventually get myself back up. And then I take stairs down because that's really a better way to get down. And I look and, like, of course, like, all of the ceiling of the garage is just sitting on top of my car, and it's a disaster. So now I have another thing that I'm like, oh, how do I fix that? Right?
Yeah.
But we make decisions about moving forward.
Did you literally and figuratively pull yourself up?
I did.
Okay.
I absolutely
Was
did.
this after you ran the marathon, so you were like nice and fit and strong? You could.
I actually don't remember the order of that. I think it was after, but yeah. And then the kids came home and they were like, "Mom, what happened to the garage?" And I was like, "I don't know, squirrel."
Did they bring that up occasionally? Did they ever bring you?
We have pictures of it, so yeah, not of me obviously, but
Yeah.
of the damage. Yeah. So I think little moments like that, right? Like the ladder, where we realize, like, no, I actually do have it in me to do this thing and to pull myself up if I have to.
Yeah, literally.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Good times.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, as far as grief goes, like, if you could give one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say people want to forget, right? They want to leave behind their marriage. They want to leave behind the divorce. They want to leave behind all of the horrible stuff. And I don't think people should do that. I think we have to write our stories, including all of it. And that doesn't mean that, like, it wasn't hard. It doesn't mean that there weren't good times. But I think people want to just, like, blow past it and forget it. And the brain just, like, kind of doesn't want to do that. It's like, hey, this was our life and now we have a different life, and it's confusing. And so being able to give honor and respect to that time and let it have been something that taught you something about yourself instead of something you're fighting. And I think that helps to be able to go, okay, now what? Like, we can say, yeah, like, that was awful, and I made it through.
Yeah, you
And it was a part of who I am.
Yeah.
Right? Like, none of us, the three of us, would not be where we are now had we not been through the experiences in our life that we've been through. And everyone is like that. And so those periods of our lives, like, deserve respect. We don't have to like it, but it deserves respect because it happened. And it was a piece of our journey. And someday when we die, that part of us doesn't go away. It's just a part of how we built our lives.
Yeah. I like it. Great advice.